The next topic that someone asked us is just your music story, just in the sense of how it kind of got started and how mainly how Everybody Panic got started. So
pretty much an overnight success
background. Yeah, right.
Nothing is an overnight success ever. You know, Brad's giving me the lights.
It's all right.
Yeah. So, well, I started off. We'll talk about it on another podcast, but I was a severe dyslexic, and when you have dyslexia, you have some problems that come up with like math and reading and writing and pretty much everything that's important. But I had a knack for musical instruments. My grandfather also had this same knack, and he sang in church and stuff, and so I kind of got my musical bug from my grandfather, I would say, and tried to play around on every instrument that I could get my hands on. And I can dabble in almost any instrument. If you set an instrument in front of me and give me about 24 hours, regardless of what it is, I'll make a song with it. So it won't be a good song, but I'll make one. And so that was kind of where I started music, whatever. And then I got into playing the drums, and I saved up all my lunch money one year at high school and bought me a drum set and just starved at lunch. Bought a drum set and then played drums in bars with bands before I was able to get in. You know, my dad would have to come and sit there with me because I was playing in a bar full of drunks.
How old were you?
13.
13.
Yeah. And then, so fast forward, I get into some bands in Oklahoma City and like just basically move into my car and start playing drums out of this little, I had like a Subaru station wagon looking thing. I kept my drums in. I would stay at my practice place and other things. So did that for a long time. And then I was creating a band and we couldn't find a singer. We were just looking for singers. And I was singing backup at the time and I knew all of the good drummers because I was a drummer. So that's when I started singing, and that was my 21st birthday. I started singing on my 21st birthday, and I was awful. I mean, it was the most awful. You know when you hear yourself on the answering machine and you're like, oh my God, that's my voice? That's horrible. How my
voice sounds.
That was exactly how it was for me, and it was awful. I was singing in a different key than the song and thought it was the right one. So that's not good. So anyway, did that for a while, started with a band singing called Cellophane and had to change that name because there was another band that sent us a cease and desist. So we changed the name from Cellophane to Lure, L-U-R-E. And I toured in the band Lure and recorded a bunch of records with them, but really was still kind of a local band. Even though we did some touring around the United States, it was all touring by ourselves. We never had a label. We never had any kind of support. And I did that for almost 10 years or so. And then that kind of fell apart. And I did an acoustic thing called Animal Movement just to have something going on. And then I contacted this guy named Provo Provenzano. He was in a band called Ricketts, and they broke up, and he joined a band called Skin Lab. And so I hit him up. I was like, hey, man, if you know of any bands, I'm a singer looking for a band. And he sent me a couple of tracks. It was like, hey, I was working on this before my band broke up. And so, which one of those songs is When It All Burns. It's off our first record, first song on our first record. And so I heard that and thought, man, this is a really cool song. So I was living in this little garage apartment at the time. I went out to this little shed behind the garage apartment, was writing these lyrics. It was so hot. It was that summer where it was like melting light poles. It was like 100 degrees for like, I don't know, a month or so. It was crazy.
It was hot.
So it was really, really hot. I also had a back injury, so I was nursing this back injury and out there just trying to write all this stuff. While writing this song, When It All Burns, my house burned down. Yeah. Kind of funny.
Wow.
But
not really.
Funnier now, I guess.
Yeah.
And so it's not the fire that really destroyed everything. It was the smoke mixed with when the firefighter kicked open the little garage apartment window and filled my whole apartment full of water. That was fun. So I started over with everything at that point. But we did get a good song out of that, so I guess we'll chalk that up to the musical gods for that's what they needed for a good song. So I did that. We had our first show. It was at the End of the World.
It was
that thing.
It was December 12th of
2012.
It was 12/12, right?
Right? I think so. Yeah.
Is that what
It's
it was?
the end of the world.
12/12?
It's supposed to be the Mayan calendar end date or whatever.
Yeah.
And we had already started producing T-shirts at this point and sold a lot.
You sold.
My band's called Everybody Panic, so the logo is, you can like it without actually liking the band.
I went to your first show, and it was really full. I mean, it wasn't a huge venue, but I mean, there was a couple hundred. There was like
almost 1,000 people.
There was 1,000 people there.
There was 1,000 people there was 960 something that had paid, and then I'm sure that we had let a few in, so there was 1,000.
Well, I'm sure it was cool because both you and really Provo are the two main people. You guys had already been in previous bands, and people had followed you, so people kind of were like, oh, well, now they're teaming up.
Right.
So that was cool.
We built a little hype, and then did that. So we played that show. It was our first show, sold out. So that was an amazing honor. We just, because Oklahoma, we have a lot of just amazing fans here. And if you have an Oklahoma fan, I mean, they are down.
Loyal.
Once they're down, they are down.
Yeah.
And so that's our base, And so then we have one more show that we sold out. And then our third show, I believe is the third show, we got an opportunity to open up for Deftones in Oklahoma City. We were the direct support. No other band playing the show except for us. Mm-hmm. It was us and then them. And so we played that, and there was an A&R rep there.
As your third show?
It's our third show.
It's pretty good. That's pretty fortunate.
So there was an A&R rep there for Cavi Gold Records, and they signed us. So we got signed on our third show. Now you hear that, and you're like, oh, you got signed on the third show.
Instant success.
Overnight success, like I said, right? But you just remember, 13 in the bars with my dad, blah, 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 all the way, trying my ass off all the way till 2012, into the world.
Well, same thing with Provo and everything too. He had been on all these other projects and everything too,
mm-hmm. So and even being signed doesn't mean we made it. Now I'm a millionaire and everything's great. I mean, things aren't bad, but I'm not flying around in a private jet or anything. So anyway, so we got that deal. That was great. Cavi Gold Records is amazing. It was a very small group, and the industry has changed. So it was like they were doing some real interesting out of the box things with us, which is pretty cool. Then I was able to meet this guy named Zoltan Bathory, who is the guitar player for Five Finger Death Punch. And he came through, played at Cat Fest here in Oklahoma City. And my buddy Jake Daniels, who's the program director at the Cat, was like, hey, man, do you want to come back here and do a meet and greet? I'm like, heck yeah. And I had on a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu t-shirt. Well, Zoltan is a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu at the time blue belt. Mm-hmm. And so he saw my shirt and was like, when you see a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu guy.
Yeah, you're brothers.
Yeah,
we talked about this
friends.
on another podcast.
And so we exchanged numbers, information, and stuff there and became friends. And then I saw he was coming to Tulsa to play this show at the Diamond Ballroom in Tulsa. And so not the Diamond Ballroom, what was it?
No, not in Tulsa. It was a theater.
It was a big theater, but the Brady Theater.
The Brady Theater.
Yeah, Brady Theater.
There's a theater in Tulsa. Yeah.
So I go there, and I'm looking for. So I get the gig. I ask him, "Hey, can I open up the show for you?" And he didn't actually say anything back. And then I had David Fitzgerald, which is like one of those promoters guys, call me up and was like, I don't know what you did, but you're on this show. Congratulations.
What didn't one band like they couldn't make it or something like that? One band dropped
off or got kicked off.
Yeah.
Something weird was going on.
So it was lucky. You got
very lucky. And so they're like, yeah, cool, come open up the show. Great. So I get there and they have this thing called the Five Finger Death Punch Dojo. And so they do some training there before the show, after the show. And so I wanted to get on some of that. So I walk in there and I hadn't talked to anybody, so I'm going to check and test the security to see who's doing what. So I just walk right through like I own the place and looking around trying to find a spot. So I eventually find the Five Finger Death Punch Dojo. And so I get in there and I kind of drop my bag off there and start walking around. Well, eventually, the head of security, John Simons, finds me because I was wandering around in places I shouldn't have been. Anyway, and he's a great dude, black belt, amazing guy under the Camarella brothers who travels with them. But anyway, got to meet them. Long story short, got there, went and did some training with them a little bit. And Zoltan had never heard my band at this point. He just was kind of doing a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu brother a favor, right? So I'm training with them. My band is in a different part of the venue. So they're stuck off in band land. I'm up here in this weird, it's like upstairs over the stage training area.
Get to rolling and training.
Yeah, so we're training, and my band is calling me because there's a special time we have to be on stage, right? And you have to be on stage at that time. Our set is on a click, so it's perfect every time. And I told the guys, listen, you just start the thing. I'm going to be there. I won't not be there. Just trust me. So it's like 5 minutes before we're supposed to go on. I'm still training with Zoltan, There's guys up there, and my phone is blowing up, just blowing up. And you can hear like the music getting ready to come on for my set, you know. And so I was like, all right, I got to get down there and do this thing. So I heard the intro music for my set. I told Zoltan, hey, I got to go play real quick. Give us a listen. Tell us what you think. My band is completely willing to go on tour with you. We have all of our gear in the trailer and our van at the time. We didn't have a bus then. Our van is out there and we're packed up, ready to go. And he's like, oh, okay, cool. So I run downstairs. I put my stage clothes on and barely make it onto stage right in time for everything to kick in. Luckily, my band believes in me enough. They were all just in position. They just knew I would be there. And they later on told me that they didn't actually know that. They were just really hopeful. They were like, we're just going to start playing. And so we played. And then as soon as the set was in, by the way, it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. There was 5,000 or so people in the audience.
So this is, you hadn't played in front of that many people ever.
No. And well, I have some festivals and stuff open up, but never a show like that.
Like in a theater, though, where everyone is there to see one.
It was just a mind-bending experience. And after it was over, I run backstage. I grab my backpack that's got all my stuff in it. I run back upstairs.
Start training.
Shower off, change into my gig in, and walk into the room. And they're still training in there. And they were like, hey, we listened to your set, came out and watched it a little bit. And it was really cool. And so we slapped and bumped, rolled around a little bit more. And then
he had to play his show.
He was getting ready to play his show and stuff. And before they went on, the band and their tour manager came up to me and was like, so I heard you guys could go on tour. You could leave right now? We're like, 100%. So you're saying you could leave right now? Yes. There's no problems with leaving. You could leave now and just go on the road with us, open up every show the rest of the tour. Yes. And so he was like, congratulations, you're on the tour. One of the greatest experiences in my whole rock and jiu-jitsu career happened right there. And so they took us out with them for like, it was 3 weeks, them, Miss May I, and Gemini Syndrome, and we got to play the rest of the tour out with them. And it was one of the greatest experiences ever, and really got my feet wet in the music industry, and really helped us musically get our foot in the door with a bunch of other things too. So super thankful to Zoltan and to the guys in Five Finger Death Punch for making that happen. It was really, really great. And now, since then, I've got to do just crazy, amazing things. And
you guys have toured and
toured like 130-something 7 days out of the last year. So it was pretty extensive touring. Yeah. And we've moved up. We're not in a van anymore. We have a bus and a trailer and sometimes a driver. Sometimes the driver's me, but whatever. I get to listen to Joe Rogan's podcast more when I'm driving. So, and now I guess ours. Perfect.
Yeah, there we go.